I would like to invite on stage Mr. K. Shivaji, Principal Secretary, Finance Expenditure, Government of Maharashtra, Mr. Deepak Mohanty, Executive Director, Reserve Bank of India, Mr. Sushil Mehnot, Chairman and Managing Director, Bank of Maharashtra, Mr. K. Venkataraman, MD and CEO, Karur Vyasa Bank, Mr. N. Jambunathan, DMD and CIO, State Bank of India, Mr. Joseph George Kavalam, Senior Vice President, State Bank of India, and Mr. Abraham Chako, Executive Director, Federal Bank. I would request the speakers for our next session to please join us on stage. Financial inclusion, the success of the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana and the journey ahead. Innovations in saving and credit policies for urban and rural India, the Maharashtra perspective in it, the role of technology to expand the reach of banks and banking services, strategy to make the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana accounts active with remittances and transactions. How will the regulatory framework ensure BFSI a level playing field for all players and keep up with the market changes? I would now request our session chair, Mr. K. Shivaji, Principal Secretary, Financial Expenditure, Government of India, to take over the session.
Maharashtra to please chair the session in his absence. And so we are starting with it. Mr. Mohanty is just taking a break, and in 2 minutes he is joining. So we will start. So we are starting with this panel discussion, and I hand over the session now to Mr. Gesture. Now we have Mr. K.P. Bakshi, Mr. K. Shivaji with us. He is the Principal Secretary, Finance Expenditure, Government of Maharashtra. I request Mr. Shivaji to please take over the session from here. So.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is the second session. Now we are taking up the topic is innovations in the banking and finance sector. You know, in India it is full of innovations, but we lack in invention. What I mean, invention is backed by the equally important institutions, but the innovation can take place with the sheer push of your talents, which normally keep happening like that. Like even in the villages, you will see in India the kind of genius demonstration of their capabilities, which keep coming every now and then. We don't have the institution like Harvard, Princeton, Oxford. We do give the substitute in terms of the innovations in every walk of life. Equally important is, you know, that in India, the innovation is also equally backed by the jugaad. That jugaad, which makes you to be really effective in whatever the work and assignments are given to you. We have seen the jugaad miracles taking place in many parts of the India, even in rural area. Now on the finance side, you know, the finance is a commodity which you can call it, is a common thread connecting every walk of our life, everybody, right from the richest billionaire to the poor. So is now, which is now taking place, is in the form of a technology. The role of technology, which is closely integrated with the phenomena of innovations, which has made its mark from the Indian context. Indians now known all over the world as intelligent people. We have been able to make a mark in the software. Hardware, of course, we are going ahead. Now, considering all that things in mind, there is a very optimum mix and the blending of the technology and the finance. Almost both these two things are going side by side, which has transformed the entire banking finance landscape. Considering all these things, you know, the technology at times has been able to catalyze the entire business operation, either in terms of the scalability or in terms of the expansion or in terms of the new financial products, new instruments. Now, the technology, how it is going to help us, the innovations and excellence. All of us are aware of that the telecom growth story for India. Somebody spoke also just sometimes back that till recently we were counting the number of landlines and the mobile phones. Now it has gone every nook and corners of the whole country. The telecom penetration, of course, because of the mobile penetration, it has taken a leap. It is a wireless solution which always gives the fastest penetration to every area. It gives that explosive expansion. But what is now left? The financial untouchability which we have been witnessing so far, not bringing the large chunk of the people in the financial fold, formal finance fold, we find that the technology is one of the biggest assets we can be able to ride on that. Like on telecom story, even the rag picker, we have been witnessing everywhere they are able to use the telephone even though they are not literate, they are not educated. Because the basic minimum knowledge required for using the numbers, they are able to at least utilize it. Now considering all these things, when we see how the landscape, the dynamics of this particular sector is taking place, it is the convergence of the services. The convergence of all types of the financial products, either from the insurance side or to the banking or to the other related instruments, which is now taking place. And technology is the biggest enabler. Technology is providing how from one segment to the other segment can be able to move together, bring together, and able to work together. And that is the choice of the consumers. That is the target every institution we will have to provide for. Considering all that things, what we find that the large number of the microfinance institutions is still they are working not in coherence, collaboration, and on the partnership. The service demand that there should be a convergence of all these services together at one place with one click of mouse, but we are not able to do it. The last mile bottleneck, we always come across and we bump with that. But what is required that we can be able to at least move forward, bring together, provide maximum options and choice to the consumers at their ease and convenience. Now, Honorable Chief Minister also has mentioned about how the banking, finance, and service industry can be able to utilize for the poverty alleviations. You know, the world over, the growth cycle from primary sector, it goes to the secondary sector, then to the tertiary sectors. India, we have leapfrog. From primary sector, almost directly we have gone to the service sectors. All over India, if you find that the service sector's dominance in the GDP basket, which is largely more than 50% anywhere in any segment, any geographical segment. Why it is taking place? Can we be able to at least use this particular dominant role of these service sectors, especially BFSI, we can be able to reach to the last mile, those who are still untouchables, those who are not able to move forward, we can be able to provide a support using this particular service industry. Because the growth without job, obviously it is of no use. But a technology will provide you this platform, especially the Aadhaar, which has given the platform, this foundation, which we are able to at least use it and move to the last person. Keeping that thing in mind, with these small words, I would like to now request the distinguished panelists. One by one, we can be able to give our views, and then at the end, I will be able to summarize it afterwards. Can we invite? Should we go with the same sequence? Yeah. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, now we request Deepak, if you are ready, coming. Request Deepak Mohanty, Executive Director, Reserve Bank of India, to give his address.
already I have spoken, and here again that financial inclusion, that we should see that it is much more a commercially viable proposition. Because the initial startup cost could be there, but unless it is a commercial viable proposition, I think it will not really go forward in that sense. And over the years, several attempts have been made to carry it forward in different ways, and success has been quite mixed. But this time around, that one is confident is because of the technology, and also the cost of technology has also come down. And one thing you may not find anything anywhere, but everybody you see that busy over the mobile telephone, so mobile telephony, and the mobile density also has gone up. So that gives a lot of hope that this could really be made a commercially viable proposition with the help of technology to take it forward. Of course, there are also challenges, interoperability and other issues at the technology space. So that really one would have to address that. And we are also as a pilot project also, we are trying to see that in the non-bank as a mobile touch point, whether the final cash out can really be done more as a pilot project, because if it's a cash out, then it becomes a bank, because there is also a consideration there that people need cash. So I'm sure that in due course, so that process should really progress. And also that people may not have savings, because many times you hear that people say that they don't have money. How do you go? Because there's a transaction cost involved to go to the bank and put your money there. You don't have a big deposit, but everybody needs payments. The children outside, workers here, they would have to send money at home. They may not save, but they would send it out. So in that context, that once we have the payment bank, so there is a bigger focus, because now that aspect is being done by different modes and the regular banks. So once the payment bank really picks up, so there would be huge boost coming out from that side. But as I said earlier, all that to really happen, identity again is the key. That unique identity should be there. So the accounts that we really have open, they should really be seeded with the Aadhaar identification. So then it becomes much easier to do the real transactions on those accounts. Dr. Sibaji, I thought I'll stop here. And thank you.
Thanks, Deepak. I have been told that let the format of this particular session be more. Am I audible? Yeah, format should be more on the panel discussion type. I would like now to just take an issue, like let us say the role of the technology in the last mile inclusion, financial inclusion. How the different institutions where we are working in, can we able to find out and solicit the views of our panelists? Can we start from Mr. Venkatraman? The role of technology in the financial inclusion. Okay. Okay. Yeah, and then we can.
As far as technology is concerned, now today there is no banking without technology. All the banking products and services are driving on the technology platform. Now the point is, innovations in technology or innovations in banking using technology. Now the purpose here is that a lot of digital technology is available, a lot of things are possible. Innovations have to come in how we apply these technologies to provide banking services to the last mile person. Now, already the PMJDY has come in, which I have already spoken about. The RuPay card with Aadhaar enablement. Now, anybody can operate his account even if he doesn't know. See, if the card would ask for PIN, all those things are slightly difficult for rural and not that very literate people. Now they can use a biometric and then operate his account and draw his money from wherever he goes. This is the innovation in application of technology which provides the facility to the last man. Similarly, in every area, in fact in BFSI, technology has been initially applied for accounting purposes. And then providing better customer service, a better delivery of service to the customers. Of course, customer service is important. Today, the economic development, because it has not reached the last mile and then the last person in the country, it is necessary that this kind of innovations are applied, or the technological designs and technological developments are applied innovatively in providing services and extending banking services in rural and unbanked centers. There are several ways which we have been doing, and then maybe we will be discussing as we go along.
Great, Venkat. We have with us Mr. Sushil Munot. He is from the Bank of Maharashtra. I would request him, since he has also the background how the entrepreneurial development in the country can take place for bridging the gap between the rich and the poor, how the startups and the other related segment which are still not in the mainstreams. I request Sushil to kindly give his views.
Very good morning, and what I'd like to say is that first of all, this is innovations in the banking and financial space. Now, innovations are generally of two types. We put them under two categories. One is incremental innovations and another is disruptive innovations. Most of the time when industry looks at is the incremental innovations. Now, what are the kind of incremental innovations which are happening, which have happened in this industry, or say in the more specifically in the banking industry, and who is driving those innovations? Looking at who is driving these innovations, you will find that all the innovations which have happened in the banking space, they have happened in the last, say, 10 years or so. Never before that. Why so? Mainly because the competition has intensified in the last 10 years. So one of the biggest drivers of innovation is competition. And the second, I can say, the driver of innovation, especially the incremental innovation, is the expectations and the needs of the customers. These are the two things which drive the innovation in any industry and anywhere, and more specifically it has done so in the banking space. One of the important parameters which I will say which has moved across all the sectors of economy is that customers today want convenience. Whether it is in shopping or whether it is in buying a product or whether it is in any sphere of life, they want convenience. So this is one factor which has impacted the banking industry in a very big way. Convenience, convenience banking, and all the innovations you will find today have been there to lead towards the convenience banking. Whether you have an ATM or whether you go for internet or whether you go for mobile banking, everything is now moving towards the convenience banking. So convenience is one of the greatest drivers of the innovation which is happening in the banking space. Again, you can see that similarly innovations, this is on the liability side, similarly innovations, as you said, will also happen on the asset side also. There will be innovations. These innovations can be in terms of making online applications or making things, again, based on convenience, making it faster and easier for the customer to be able to get financing from the banking sector. So again, this is also driving convenience, is driving those innovations. Now, if you look at the other part of innovations, if you see, let's say disruptive innovations. Now, disruptive innovation is something which is not driven by either competition or by the customer. It is coming from somewhere else. For example, in technology side, if you say that with the invention of the aeroplanes, and people didn't go out from one country to another country by ships. So all of a sudden, an innovation changed the whole thing. Similarly, in the banking space, I feel what has been there which has driven, made up this disruptive innovation, it is the society, pressure of the society and exerted through the government in the field of financial inclusion. That there is a, see, this pressure has not come from either the customer or from the banks, it has come from the government, and that is how financial inclusion has come up as a disruptive innovation. Now, what is the innovation which can happen in this space? Today, it is not a very viable proposition to be there in the financial space, in inclusion space. So all innovations which are going to happen in the next 5 years, you will see is in terms of bringing the cost down, making it a viable proposition, in terms of making financial inclusion a viable proposition, whether it is through UBS, the ultra small, USBs, ultra small branches, whether it is through banking correspondents, whether it is through any other mechanism, whether, yes, Aadhaar enabled mechanisms, or mechanisms of using maybe the payment banks which are going to come in, the mechanism for using all these telecom service providers, any which way which can bring down the cost of this service of reaching out to the large number of people so that it becomes a viable business activity. That is where will be the whole innovation chain will be driven in the next 5 years. Thank you.
Great, Sushil. We have with us Mr. Hota from the National Payment Corporation. No, he's not here? Okay. Then we can go ahead to Mr. Jambunathan from the State Bank of India. You know, the SBI is one of the biggest, largest bank in the country and has its wings almost every nook and corner. We would like to request him that how the SBI is planning its strategy to cover the last mile using, of course, there is a huge and aggressive technology foray by the SBI. So how this type of the strategy is putting in place to cover the last mile?
Good afternoon. Thanks for the offer. See, I'm associated with the financial inclusion from the day one, from 2005 onwards. In the initial days, the State Bank of India went for the mobile phone based with RFID cards, financial inclusion. Subsequently, we have now migrated to the PC based kiosk, banking kiosk. The reason why we did it was that in most of the places, these mobile based systems did not get connectivity. That is where you will still face the challenge. Even within the city, most of the times you don't get 3G or 2G. You get E in many of the places in our mobile phones. In the case of State Bank of India, we are expecting that the government will, with its digital platforms, which is going to come in all the villages, we will be able to get the connectivity for our PC-based kiosks in the rural areas. And these kiosks will be fully integrated with the Aadhaar so that all financial transactions can be authorized through the Aadhaar. Previously, before Aadhaar was there, every bank was collecting the biometric data of the individual customers. In going forward, this kind of collection of data will no more be there. It will be only based on the eKYC based on Aadhaar and business correspondence to deliver the services at the last mile. Moreover, all the branches across the country have got an ATM. Each rural and semi-urban branch has also got an ATM which will be able to deliver the services to the people. The important thing is that how do we migrate people to go to the ATM to take the cash, and how do we migrate them to ensure that they don't go to another bank's ATM, because these are all small value accounts. If we don't teach the customers, if they go to other bank ATMs, then the banks for the small value accounts will start losing money. This is a great challenge for all the banks in the future. And how to ensure that the ATMs in all the places work, because the maintenance of the servicing of the ATMs and also distribution of cash, which are ATM fit, is a great challenge for all the banks. One of the things that the State Bank tried in a big way was mobile financial inclusion. So with mobile vans, they went to villages to reach out. I think it did not succeed because mobile vans could not get the communication in the last mile, and they failed. Once we have the connectivity in the villages, certainly this kind of a technology can be tried. And the most important thing for the financial inclusion to succeed will be how we treat the business correspondents, because business correspondents are the most important leg, and if there is no sense of participation and ownership from the bank side with the business correspondent, then the channel will lose its importance and the people might not deliver the services in full measure. So the success of this entire scheme will be either on the basis of the business correspondent model succeeding and making him continue to be interested in the, providing the service, or we get into a payment bank and the payment banks are able to provide the same kind of services to the customers. These are the important legs: business correspondent, communication, or the payment bank. These will be the essential things that will be necessary to deliver the financial services to the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jambunathan. Very excellent comments. Now we have relatively a smaller bank experts representing South Indian Bank and Federal Bank. In India, it is largely the public sector banks have the larger market share. They have been able to, of course, do their best to increase the financial inclusion and their spread. But these two private, smaller but more beautiful, I can say, they have been more beautiful in their operation I'm talking about. So I would like to now request these two experts to comment about the role of the private sectors, private banks, how they are able to see from their perspective that this type of the spray and the new instrument they can be able to put in place. Next, what we can also request these two gentlemen, that vis-a-vis the public sector banks and the public sector financial institutions, the comparative advantages which these private institutions have in terms of the functional flexibility and operational freedom, they can be able to comment it to our innovation skills. Can I request first Mr. Abraham Chaku?
It's true, we are far, far smaller than the public sector banks, but still we're talking about, I think South Indian is probably 800, 900 branches, and we are about 1250 branches. Our strength is, even though we are national and all India in nature, there are concentrations where we are very, very strong, and for banks like ours, we're very strong in the home state, which is Kerala. We have like over 600 branches just in one little state. So it becomes easier for us in terms of financial inclusion to penetrate and get very accurate data and to map the whole thing much more easier. Even though the population is very high, we've got about 33 million people in Kerala. So that is a strength that we have. Now, it's not that we're going to be able to go and do financial inclusion in, say, Chhattisgarh or Jharkhand or something where we don't have such a large network of branches. But in certain states where we are focused on, we're able to do that. But I think the most important thing is that the ability to go down to the last mile is easier for banks which are focused on particular regions. And I think that's one point in our favor. In terms of technology, I mean, if you go back 20, 25 years ago, the foreign banks were a lead on all Indian banks in terms of technology. But today, everyone is on the same level playing field. You use the same systems and they're upgraded at frequent intervals. So there's no difference in technology. I think the weakness in India today is, are we getting enough bang for the buck for the money we spend on technology? Because while we have the great advantage in ATMs across the country and our basic accounting systems cater to all our customers' needs on the basic stuff, the internet connectivity is very low, for instance. In terms of, in my place where I live, if I move from one part of my house to another part, I'm picking up the Wi-Fi of my neighbor. Okay, and if you drive from here to Bandra Kurla itself, you get cut off 3-4 times. So while we talk about ICICI having had this Wi-Fi town or village, how do we get that across the whole country? Because if all this has to succeed, you need that connectivity, and that's our single biggest problem. Number two is financial literacy. Now, we have that in Kerala. It will be easier for us to implement, but how all these wonderful things that we are planning, it's great. And even if 75% of it comes true, I think it's fantastic. But I think there's a serious problem in terms of financial literacy of how do we get those people to use all this gadgetry that are being evolved and designed and make it work. And how do we get the connectivity into the last? Those are particular areas which are a problem. But part of it is solved by this new payment banks that are coming through, because they'll put into technology and they'll also have to work with banks on the literacy part of it. And literacy also, I must add, is just a couple of weeks ago, we were all told that all banks must pick up one school and have literacy at the school level from 6 to 18. And that's 120,000 schools that are going to be covered. The whole thing has to work in a, I would say, cooperative mode between, say, the banks, 120,000 bank offices, 155,000 post offices, all these small payment banks coming up. This is how it's all going to work. The ecosystem will have problems. What Mr. Venkatraman talked about is 5,000 rupee overdraft. There is a general tendency in the country that if it's government supported, you don't have to pay it back. Okay? And that happens with most insurance schemes. These are worries that we have. So technology is great, but its implementation is going to be tough. There's money that's going to be given. How do we recover it is number two, a second factor. So, but whatever it is, even if you hit 60, 70, 75% of it, it's progress. And that's what I would say.
Mr. Joseph George.
I'm from South Indian Bank, of course. We talked about financial inclusion and the projects which are being undertaken by South Indian Bank on discount. Kerala, our home state, I think more than 50% of the network for my bank is in Kerala state. And Kerala is supposed to be a literate state as well. And that gives us a kind of comfort whereby we can really penetrate the villages and then, market our products. One major aspect, we have really gone in for all the regulated kinds of, financial, inclusion kind of a thing. For example, all Aadhaar seeded accounts or other, going for the villages to get maximum number of accounts from them. Apart from that, for the socio-economic development part of it, I think we have adopted villages. We have adopted villages and we are imparting skill development, literacy, and we are also, providing OD facility, etc. And, taking care of the entire needs of the villages. In that aspect, I think going one step further from financial inclusion, we have already carried forward our betting forward. And again, we are trying to include people, although as well to include people more on the literary side as well. We have got around 1 million Aadhaar seeded accounts, which really takes us forward in terms of DBT, etc. And all those the standard, already, these things have already been mentioned here. All those standard pattern of financial inclusion have already been implemented by the bank, and we are still hoping to go forward much on discount. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. George. Can I have one more question from Deepak? If you, now we are moving, we are now bringing more of differentiated banks, and especially the payment banks which are now in the pipeline. Good number of the new entrants are already in the under considerations, which people are applying also. Do you feel that this type of the differentiated but focused approach will help in achieving our objective faster? And if so, what was the background when 1969, when the nationalization took place? This is supposed to be on certain parameters quite contrarian approach. Would you be able to comment on these two?
One thing is that, it's whatever we say. See, ultimately it is competition which should drive the process. And in terms of technology, cost of technology, access to technology, it has improved substantially. There's scope for further improvement, so that is there. So now, in a way, if I may say, that in the fourth also there is a monopoly of commercial banks, universal banks. It may not be priority for them in that sense. And of course, initially it is not, profitable proposition there. And of course, everybody is taking with all seriousness. And what really happens at the ground level, at the top management, they may be very concerned and things should really move. But at the grassroots level, what is happening at the branch level, there are challenges. And see, the idea that the new players come in terms of the small banks and niche banks like the payments bank, so they have a huge quantum jump in terms of the technology, because from this very beginning itself, they would be technology savvy in that sense. So they would be able to drive competition in the whole space. So then the whole process in this way can get a boost. And on the other question, like that, why we have moved from that side, because earlier it was that then one size fits all doesn't work, because the country is quite diversified, and the requirements are also very different, and their access to the payment system is also very different, and the statutory and regulatory requirements are also very different. So it may not be feasible. So why not try with various entities? And it's nothing new, because we have done that in the past. Because that's why we said that regional rural banks, that they would serve the rural areas and all that. So we brought in within the commercial banking framework. We had cooperative banks also. We encourage non-banking financial companies. So I think I would think there's a logical extension to that process. But in terms of the institutional structure, I think it is the technology which will distinguish the newer players coming in from the earlier players, and the priority that they would assign to this particular task. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepak. We have, we have seen in the morning also good number of speakers mention about growth with equity. The trickle down, whatever the value creation, wealth creation which is taking place is in Indian ecosystem, the trickle down hypothesis has not materialized to the great extent. Now we have the new set of the next generation in India who are highly aspirational. At the same time, they are all highly educated also. They are well exposed about the global phenomena, global activities. We have with us Mr. Sushil. Again, I would like to request him that on the credit side, how the financial inclusion, whether the new set of the aspirational young India, they will be able to help us achieve the financial inclusion on the credit side in a better way, or will be able to magnify in achieving the things on a faster track.
Thank you. See, on the financial inclusion, it includes not just, or it encompasses not just the liability side, but also encompasses the asset side also, where availability of credit should also be there to all the people. In fact, that is why even the PMJDY, you have a credit availability of say rupees 5,000 for purposes once you see that the account is doing well for the last 6 months. So that is one part of financial inclusion, which again will be coming in after the first part has just got completed. That is opening of the account, then satisfactory working of the accounts, and then only this is at the third stage it comes in. As for the question on for the younger generation, Gen Y, who is interested in getting into credit, requiring credit to set up businesses, I think that's a very important area. When you want to set up a business, you need credit, and credit is required both in terms of debt and equity. Now, for the purpose of debt, most of the time you try to go to the banking system, and if you are able to prepare a proper project report, have a good proper study on the, credit preparation is done, project preparation is done properly, then you will be able to convince a bank manager for be able to get a funding for your project. The other thing is you should also be aware of the schemes like credit guarantee scheme for micro and small enterprises. So if you are aware and you don't have availability of collateral to be given, you can try to get it under that scheme. So that is another area where you can get the funding from the banking system. Now the third important part of that is the equity, finding equity for the bank from the system. Either you have to depend on your friends and relatives, or there are not many formal sources. Now the government of India has come out with a 10,000 crores venture capital funding scheme for the micro and small enterprises. I think that is where once that starts in, I think it will be acting as a fund of funds, which will be giving it to the various venture capital funds, and who will then be giving it to the individuals who will take it up. So that could be also act as a game changer in terms of getting equity available for the segment, whether it is for the very initial startups or whether it is for people who want to expand. See, both the growth capital and the startup capital, both can be done from this kind of a financing. So this will again improve the kind of availability of both equity, debt, and maybe at some time we can also look at venture debt. So all these things can bring about financial inclusion in terms of availability of credit to the different segments of people. One is to the very small segment through a 5,000 kind of a line. Next will be through the microfinance institutions who are going to give you up to 50,000 kind of thing. Then there can be NBFCs and others who can be on the last mile again, or the payment, or the small banks which will come in, which will again help in the credit dispensation to the small borrowers. And then you can have these banks, the other commercial banks, who will also take up this exercise through this mechanism. Thank you.
Thank you, Sushil. Can we have one more question from Mr. Jambunathan? You know, now because of the entry of the large number of the banks and some more banks which are in the pipeline on the payment side, the State Bank has the strength with having the largest share of business with the government. And also, you have substantial retail base because of your spreads. Now, since the competition is likely to hot up, do you think that you will be able to move faster to go and reach to those places where is still unbanked, and you will be able to grab the lion's share?
See, even in 1969, when the lead bank started, the State Bank of India was given lead districts, which were the farthest places in the country. So we are the lead bank possibly in Chhattisgarh, or in the Northeast, or in Sikkim. All these places we are the lead bank, because the government at that time thought that only State Bank of India can go to the remotest areas and start building up the bank network. This philosophy has been continued, and today also we have opened about 1,000 branches in spite of the largest number of business correspondents that we have. And we have more than 130,000 touch points in the bank today. So I think the bank will be able to meet the challenges. As far as the government business is there, the government business, there has been always competition in the last 20 years. After the private sector banks have come, government business has been a challenge for State Bank of India. But because we have the technology today and we are able to deliver services far better than anybody else, and also we have the reach, people have started, you know, governments have started using the State Bank of India services, especially the corporate internet banking. Many of the governments are tied up with us for corporate internet banking. So all the treasuries directly link up with our corporate internet banking in at least 5-6 states I know. Then also our cash management product services are amongst the best in the country. So the challenge in terms of private sector banks or anybody else taking our government business is very remote. Only State Bank of India can provide the service in such areas which others cannot go. But the real challenge will come if the payments banks, they come up with a business model which can be disruptive to the State Bank. At that time, yes, we will have to see what is their business model, then we will have to adapt to the challenge.
Thank you, Jambunathan. I think in order to cater to all the expectation from the audience, with permission from the organizer, I think we will request the audience also, if you have any specific questions, if you can ask from any of us, from the panelists, that will be appreciated, because that will tune our views with the line with what you wanted to know from us. May I have some questions from the audience? Karthik, if you can be able to provide the mic and other. Yes, I think Mr. Bakshi.
I have a question.
Okay. Sir,
everybody's
just will come back to you, sir. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, everybody is talking about payment banks. I need to understand where is the money made in the payment bank, because right now the banks are doing payment business. If it's local transfer, you don't make money.
Bit loudly, please.
I said I want to know how payment banks are going to make money, because as of now, the big banks are already doing payment business. Local transfers, they don't make money. Only international transfers or outside in Mumbai or something, they make money. Seeing the infrastructure cost, where do you feel there's money to be made in payment banks?
I think Jambunathan probably. Or Deepak.
No. As a regulator, we are not in that business that whether they will make money or not. But one thing I can say, there's a lot of interest in that product. I hope, because it's again not government, it's again private entities, and they would have done their homework before coming in for that.
We still don't know how it's going to work, because the question of profitability is still up in the air. But the basic premise is volume, large number of transactions. If you take, for instance, in Kerala, we come from, a large part of the labor now is coming from Eastern India, and they don't have any records. Now, with the basic KYC, which is just a name, photograph, and you can actually open a payment account right now, before this payment bank account system comes in. up to 10,000 rupees, no questions asked. It has to be transferred right now to a bank account in maybe his wife's bank account in whichever village or whatever. And these villages are far away from the nearest ATM or bank. With this payment model coming, each little grocer could be a payment party in the whole process. So you'll see a huge volume increase. We'll go away from banks. All the technology and all that we do is aimed at one thing, reducing bank profitability. That is a fact of life, but it is going to help the country. You know, all of us, all our floats might go in different directions. When technology came in, all our cash management, which was wonderful money lying in various spots around the country, all disappeared. This is again will be an attack on banking, but so be it. Because banks anyway are not making that much money on domestic transfers. So if you go and say 1,000 rupees your transfer, you might have to pay 10 rupees under the payment module. But the volumes will be huge. So the question is how many payment banks are going to come in? Because if they, I saw in this papers today 70, there's talk about 70 having come in. Most of them are payment banks, only about 3-4 were savings banks, small banks. And that's linked to a lot of them are telcos. Now if you take M-Pesa, which started in Kenya, there's a huge success. Now, you won't find M-Pesa and the payment bank systems that we are talking about in developed countries. Because the models are really for developing countries like ours, where the country is vast, the reach is not easy. So this is all going to evolve, but I think if they have 100 payment banks coming, you're not going to make a lot of money. But start with 1 or 2 or 3 and see how it works, but it's going to serve a purpose which banks cannot actually achieve today properly. And there's going to be a lot of people, a lot of these partners with these payment banks around the country who can effect payment in small quantities to small amounts to the wife, the mother, whatever it is sitting in the village, because the whole country is moving around in different directions. The Malayalis went off to the Gulf and the NRI remittance started. Now the Easterners are working in the South and they're going all over the place, and this connectivity is increasing. We're becoming really migrant within the country itself. So I think the model will come purely by volume. Low charges, high volume. But we'll have to see. Maybe initial years will be lost because of high technology costs.
I can just add up here, saying that, see, this question of business model for the payment banks gels very well with the theme of our seminar, that is innovations in the space. Now, when do innovations happen? Necessity is the mother of invention. So once you have a payment bank coming in, and there is a pressure on profitability also for the payment bank, because you never know how are you going to make a business model out of it. I am sure they will come out with a lot of innovations in the banking space that will bring them to the field of coming into a proper business model. So over the 2 years, I am sure we will see the maximum amount of innovations happening in this space from the payment banking side to make them viable.
Great. I think, you know, your question, it gives how the payment banks, they will operate. It is a typical manifestation of how the convergence of services are going to take place. And accordingly, they will be able to increase their volumes of, their turnover. What has happened, like you can see, some of us must have seen Airtel is the market share for the music total receipt. You know, the ringtone. Earlier used to be many Blockbuster and many of these T-Series, other things. Now the Airtel has their largest market share in terms of the music industry. So is the case with, we have seen, of course, till the other day, the Nokia used to be the market leader in terms of the digital camera. So this drive of the convergence with the aid and assistance of the technology which is taking place, which will provide the maximum satisfaction to the consumers and the customers. In turn, this type of the creative, I can say the distortion to some extent will provide a new platform, and the new service products will obviously emerge. Can we have the next question from Mr. Bakshi?
Yeah. It's not a question, but I just want to ask Mr. Mohanty, RBI. I have always felt, while working in the planning department, I have been working closely with the finance department. I have always felt that in this country we have not rewarded financial discipline as much as we should have. To give you an example, in case of interest subvention scheme, we have been advocating that in case the farmer pays in time and as per schedule, we give him some subvention of interest. This I have been advocating even with the finance department, and we have been saying that in most of these schemes of government, let us tie up with the banks and give them subvention rather than directly giving it to the person. And therefore, we can spread a message of financial discipline. And my question to you is that have you ever thought of increasing the play that gap, narrow window with the banks, wherein some innovation can be brought in to reward financial discipline. We have systems of finding out what is my credit worthiness. We have a lot of instruments which are available to me. Are you thinking of designing a system in which some innovation can be brought in to reward the financially disciplined borrower?
I think very good question, because what we have seen in terms of the lending rate, we are given a lot of flexibility to the banks themselves to determine that lending rate. That earlier, the cross subsidization should not take place, because earlier we saw that small borrower used to pay very higher interest rate compared to large borrowers who had the muscle really to negotiate. So it is up to the banks really put that break-even and threshold where that minimum rate should be. Some improvement. There are issues that we are trying to tackle in the pricing of the loan. And but in terms of subvention, what we have seen that we have relaxed that condition, because that is the minimum floor which is there. But in case there is a subvention is there, they can go below that floor. That is how a lot of agricultural lending really takes place. And certainly one can incentivize that by the borrowers who are giving on a prompt repayment is there. We can certainly, the banks are free really to do that. But only thing that I would caution that in terms of the moral hazard issue, because as you know, these things are also tied up sometime, at least people's mind in terms of the loan waiver and things like that. So that spoils again the credit culture. At least small loans, agriculture loans, sometimes people, though they have the capacity really to pay, but they don't come forward and pay. So that creates a problem. So then it is a thin line that really one would have to work on. But I must say that that flexibility is certainly there, because we have not restricted that.
Thank you, Deepak. Can we have one more question from this side, if somebody can?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm Prakash Jairam from Infosys. We are running a fairly large program with the Department of Posts. We're helping all the 25,000 and eventually 155,000 post offices be on a core banking and a core insurance system, and thus enabling financial inclusion. At least two members of the panel mentioned connectivity being a big impediment to actually achieving financial inclusion, whether it's through the mobile or through a mobile bank. Just wanted to hear any of your thoughts on any incentives to allow or enable this connectivity. For example, can there be incentives recommended where a Kirana store owner, somebody who has a tall enough structure, can be provided some right-of-way payments, such that it's easier for companies to establish connectivity? I say this because we are facing these same challenges as we expand across the country. Today we are in the primary cities, about 2,300 branches have been connected to a core banking system. But if we are to connect 155,000 branches, right, connectivity is a serious impediment. Sustained connectivity, sometimes any connectivity, and enough connectivity. So wanted to hear some more thoughts on either some kind of policy incentives or any other innovations you're seeing around enhancing connectivity to enable inclusion.
I can only tell you, day before yesterday, Sunday evening, there was that program in CNBC, and Mrs. Soundararajan, she was speaking on that. She was saying that digital connectivity will be completed by 2016 March across the entire country. About a month back, a district like Idiki, every village was connected with a broadband. So I am sure that within the next 2 years, by March 2016, every village will have a broadband connectivity, which will enable you to do your, work.
See, the way in which we have the program called Digital India, the connectivity definitely will not be a bottleneck. The creativity will be the bottleneck. More we will be creative, we are innovative in our service delivery. That will be the challenge. Because we have seen good number of the places where we have been able to put the WAN, LAN, or many other electronic platform. We are not able to devise good service products. So that is the challenge which we should focus for extending this type of the services. Do you have something further to comment or?
No, I think the answers are encouraging. If we can bank as private companies that in 2 years' time, connectivity will not be an impediment, creativity will. Exactly.
At least in the metro area, these problems have started surfacing. I think we have answered.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Karthik, should we? Okay. So let me thank all the panelists. They all have distinguished services in this particular space and have been able to share their thought with us. We also would like to thank the audience, despite now touching the lunch time. All of you had been patient in listening and also giving your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We would request you to give the speaker mementos to all the guest speakers in the dais. To Mr. Deepak Mohanty, Executive Director, Reserve Bank of India. To Mr. Sushil Mehnot, Chairman and Managing Director, Bank of Maharashtra. To Mr. K. Venkataraman, MD and CEO, Karur Vysya Bank. To Mr. N. Jambunathan, DMD and CIO, State Bank of India. I would request everybody to give a round of applause to all the speakers at the dais. Mr. Joseph George Kavalam, Senior Vice President, South Indian Bank. And Mr. Abraham Chaco, Executive Director, Federal Bank. I would request us CEO. I would request Mr. Deepak Mohanty, Executive Director, Reserve Bank of India, to give the memento to Mr. K. Shivaji, Principal Secretary, Finance, Government of Maharashtra. Thank you so much, sir, for your thoughts. We would request for a group photograph to please join us.